My name's David Ryan. I feel really privileged and honoured to be here. Can you make sure you let me know when you're taking them pictures so I can suck my belly in? I'm really inspired by some of the talks that I've heard this morning, and just by the drive and the ambition for Guernsey. I've sat most of the morning working out how I can come and live out here. It just feels really inspiring and heartwarming. So the title of my talk is Vulnerable Leadership, and it's about how to tell your story from the heart. So I've brought some tissues because I might get a bit emotional, and I'm okay with that today. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and for me that means on the 4th of October I celebrated 16 years clean and sober. Thank you. And for a person that kind of hails from my neighbourhood, that is kind of rarely heard of. I was born in Moss Side, Manchester, in 1965. I'm 51 today, for those people who are trying to work out what that makes me. And I grew up in a multicultural neighbourhood. Moss Side in them days was an area that a lot of immigrants kind of aimed for. So I come from a big Irish Catholic family, but at that time there was a lot of African people and Jamaican people moving into the area as well. And it was quite a thriving community in many ways. I was talking to the taxi driver on the way here, on the way to the hotel last night. I'm sure he thought that I was a shady character, because I was asking him what's the crime rate like out here. When was the last burglary? I was just really amazed to hear that you're very fortunate to be able to leave your back doors open and your windows open. And I live in a relatively nice area of Manchester, but even I won't leave my windows open at night. But I know in Moss Side, in the early days, my childhood, we did that. You could leave your doors open and you could wander in and out of each other's houses and have your dinners. And from an asset-based community perspective, which is what I'll be talking about, it's getting better. It's definitely getting better, but it's something that is long gone, where communities pull together. So yeah, I'm born and raised in Moss Side, brought up predominantly by the women of my family. So because the men were off doing what men do. So in them days it was either drinking, fighting, working, ultimately just not being present, being unavailable. So I grew up not trusting men, really, not liking men. From 2-3 years old, had to learn how to fend for myself because there was lots of violence that went on around our house. So my brothers, who would not one of them, but I've got 2 brothers. One of them is an ideal role model in many respects, but my other brother was quite prone to lashing out, and every single man that my mum ever got involved with, including my dad, beat her black and blue. So yeah, it was one of them things from early days, just cannot trust men. And yeah, learned from an early age how to fend for myself, really. 4-5 years old, growing up. We used to have lots of Irish get-togethers, and drink would flow freely, alcohol, spirits. And I tried alcohol from a very early age, and I literally remember the feelings from how that took hold of me. Feelings of warmth and kind of louder and funnier and more confident, and it just kind of worked, really. It stopped all them feelings that that I experienced from an early age of not feeling good enough and not liking who I was and being willing to do anything to fit in, people pleasing. Spent quite a lot of time on my own for a 4 or 5 year old, and I've got 7 children now. I just couldn't imagine my children going through some of the stuff that I went through. And that's not to say my mum or my immediate family were bad. You know, they kind of did the best with what they had, but I just wouldn't expose my children to a third of the stuff that I was exposed to. So, yeah, 6, 7 years old, experimented with alcohol. Became, I hate the term, but it kind of describes the children of this kind of lifestyle quite well, really. But feral children. So I was out, kind of 9, 10 years old, on the streets, hanging around the shops, smashing windows and ringing the police and then running away, and just all silly things, just to fit in, really. A lot of it was peer pressure. Didn't really want to do half of the things that I did, but I felt like I needed to be accepted. Felt more accepted by my friends because I would do the things that I needed to do to be accepted by them, more than my own family. And then started experimenting with cannabis and glue and magic mushrooms when I was 12, 13. And then when I was 14, I experimented with heroin for the very first time. And that was it. That was it. It was the next 20-odd years of my life. Doing whatever I needed to do, really, to sell drugs, and I mean literally whatever I needed to do. I'm not proud of that today. I've made my amends to most of the people that I've hurt or harmed, and I've made my amends to the communities that I've devastated. I was a prolific offender for a long period of my life, habitual offender for those people that don't understand what that term means. Some years I'd be in and out of jail 4 or 5 times a year, just doing short sentences. And in total served close to 40 sentences, ranging from really petty offences right up to the most serious offences that I ended up doing, which was armed robberies. You wouldn't think that to look at me today, would you? I've got a really innocent face, haven't I? But no, that's the truth. And I mean, you know, I kind of work with lots of colleagues nowadays, and when I tell them this story, they go, I would never have thought of that about you. But yeah, that's the truth, for my sins. And then in 2000, on my last occasion in prison, it was one of the worst times of my life, because people had kind of washed their hands of me, really. They'd had enough. My mum had died by then. My mum was kind of my role model, my grandma, my second role model. And I'd had several attempts at committing suicide over the years, just because I hated myself. I hated everybody. I hated society. I hated the government. I hated the police. But more than all of that, I hated myself. I just didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be alive. Didn't feel like I had a right to be alive on many occasions. And then on my last occasion in prison, I tried to hang myself. And I did it, as far as I was concerned, I did it in a way that it just could not fail. I ripped the sheets up off the bed, and I tied them around the bars, and I stood underneath the window, and I kicked the chair away, and I landed in a heap on the floor because it just didn't work. And it kind of, in some respects, it was a little bit of a paradox, really, because there was a part of me that thought, see, you can't even bloody kill yourself properly. And then the other part was, I was just overwhelmed. I was talking to Katie last night briefly in the taxi, about spiritual awakenings. And there was a part of me that just felt overwhelmed with a presence. And I truly believe it was my mum. And it was like, this isn't your time. You're made for better stuff than this. And that night, I wrote a letter. I was just going through my, there was a newspaper in my cell, and I was just reading through the newspaper, and halfway through the newspaper, there was a story by a lady called Helen Massey Roach, who was a recovering alcoholic and addict, and she'd opened a rehab in Stockport in Manchester. And I wrote to her that night, and 2 weeks later she came up to see me. And she was like Florence Nightingale. She walked in the visits room and it was like she was glowing. Really, and I mean that truly, honestly. She had this real radiance about her. She just emanated kind of strength and resilience and everything that I'd kind of missed out on, really. And we sat talking and she said to me, you know what, I don't normally make these decisions. I normally go back and speak to the team, but I'm going to offer you a place in our rehab. And I was just overwhelmed because I really, truly felt like that was what I needed at that time. I don't know why I'm holding this in my hand. I've wrote loads of notes. I'm not referring to any of them. I ended up getting a chance at this rehab, and I'd been clean for the period of time that I'd been on remand. I was on remand. I used to commit quite a lot of petty offences, but I also committed quite a lot of serious offences as well. And this offence was a particularly serious offence, and I didn't expect to get a squeeze at court. I expected to go back to prison. And she came to court on the day, and she spoke up and gave a character reference, and the judge decided to give me a deferred sentence on the grounds that I go to rehab and I keep out of trouble, and I do a few other things like pay my fines and I did, and that was the 4th of October 2000. So for the last 16 years, I've worked really, really hard at turning my life around. So a lot of the really inspiring and encouraging stuff that I've heard spoke about this morning has been a big part of what I've thrown my life into. So I completed rehab and I went back and started doing voluntary work, and then I decided that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to put my life experience into, you know, kind of practice, and I wanted to try and help people who'd had that life experience that I'd had. So from a mental health perspective, an addiction perspective, just complete and utter failed relationships perspective, I've now been able to help lots and lots of people because of my experience. I went on to get a job with the rehab that I went to, and started out as a volunteer, and then got a job with them as a support worker, and then made my way up to deputy manager and then manager and then head of the service. And I stayed with them for 12 years, and I helped to make them one of the most forward-thinking and successful services in terms of recovery outcomes. And just, yeah, I mean, even today, they're still a really successful organisation. But I left in 2011. I kind of got burnt out. I'd put a lot of energy and time into helping people, coming up with really entrepreneurial ideas and kind of, you know, just thinking out of the box, really. And a lot of it has been covered this morning in terms of values and in terms of mindfulness, in terms of helping people to just, you know, ultimately believe that they can be better people. So I've got lots of really successful outcomes, and people that are constantly ringing me and thanking me and texting me and emailing me and speaking very highly of me, and just thinking about that. I mean, this morning I've put a message on Facebook about feeling a little bit overwhelmed because I'm here speaking in front of all these really academic and intelligent, bright people, and then here's little old me the yobbo from Moss Side. And all the kind of responses off my friends about believing yourself, you're a miracle, just, you know, sometimes they have more belief in me than I do. I still have days where I really do not believe that I have the ability to do this, or I have the courage or the strength. And it's them kind of messages, and it's the little kind of, you know, pats on the shoulder that remind me that I have got the ability to do this. So yeah, I get called names. I used to get called names like smackhead and cunt and getting told things like you'll never amount to nothing. So listening to the stuff that Peter was saying about the school stuff, and a couple of other people have said about the school stuff, that just really, really resonates with me, because if I kind of feel like if I would have been given that real positive role mentoring in my life when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have gone through half of the stuff that I went through. But then somebody else said this morning, I'm not sure if it was Shona, about would you change it? And actually I wouldn't. You know, it might sound hard to believe. I believe that all of that life experience, as painful as it's been, has made me the person that I am today. So I can truly say that I'm proud of myself today, and I'm really, really, really kind of chuffed with what I've done and who I've become. I get people from the local police ringing me and asking me to come out and be part of this, and I get invites to conferences like this. I was on Radio 5 last week, I was on Radio 4 the week before, and I'm just like, is this really, really happening? I work for an organisation today called Emerging Futures, and I'm the housing manager. And I really believe in what we do. We're a very forward-thinking, again, entrepreneurial type of organisation, different from traditional services, very, very different. So we're a peer-led organisation, and we empower our residents, and I hate the word clients, but I'm just not sure how to term them right now, to just believe in themselves. And we have lots of really, really successful pieces of work going on. We've been commissioned. We were started in Manchester in May 2000. I was the very first employee. I was headhunted. I wasn't headhunted by the police for a change. And we've now gone on to win contracts in Birmingham and Gloucester and Warrington and Manchester. Manchester and Birmingham are two of the biggest drug and alcohol treatment contracts in the country, by the way. So it's not kind of small potatoes. It's really big pieces of work. And yeah, we do really good work. We do lots of asset-based community development stuff. So working from a strengths-based perspective, so helping people to believe in their own skills of the heart and skills of the hand and skills of the head. Supporting people to utilise them skills. So one of our residents might come to me and say, Dave, we've been thinking about having a men's group. What do you think? And I'm like, go and do it. Go and do it, start it off, and then let's see how it goes. And talking about men's groups, I was talking to Mark about a recent men's workshop that I did. So I do loads of personal development because I believe that all that old stuff is still present somewhere in me. The feelings of less than, and sometimes feelings like a really poor dad when my children don't get what they want, or they look at me in a way that they feel disappointed or whatever. And it kind of lands. So I still have work, to do. I believe that I'll never get to a place where I can put my feet up and go, I am the finished article. I've always got something to do. So I do lots of workshops, personal development workshops. I'm currently training to be a psychotherapist, training in TA. Really excited about that. I've just started my second year, and there's not enough TA therapists in addiction. So I'm really looking forward to bringing that to the field of psychotherapy, or particularly TA. You getting ready to tell me to get off now? Okay, yeah. So that's pretty much it, really. I'm about today and tonight. I would love to talk to people and connect on a human-to-human level. If anyone wants to talk, thank you very much.